Whoa, we've already got one worm.
Here we are at Merefest, and I'm joined by Iwan from the North Wales Wildlife Trust.
Yes.
And we're getting down and dirty, aren't we, Iwan? Can you tell me a little bit about your work with worms?
Yes, well, we're doing some soil pits here, and we're trying to teach people about the variety of worms that we have in the UK. So there's 27 species of earthworms in the UK. Everyone thinks earthworms, there's only one type, but there are 27 different types, and they all perform a really important job in the soil. So some live in the compost, some live in the underneath the leaf litter, some in the top level of the topsoil, and then some, like this really big one here, they are deep burrowing earthworms. So this is a lobworm, and the reason we know it's a lobworm is if you look at its tail, it flattens into like a paddle shape.
Okay.
So these are amongst the biggest earthworms you have in the UK, and they burrow really, really deep into the ground during the day, and they pull leaves down into their chamber, and they eat the leaves during the day. But if you see a rolled up leaf sticking out of the ground, it's one of these that's been interrupted pulling one down into its chamber.
Okay.
And these can grow up to about 30 centimetres long, given enough time. So, and then we're just teaching the children and the adults here about how to tell the difference between adults and juvenile worms. So if you ever wanted to know what the difference is, I'll give this one a little bit of a bath, because they like to keep wet. Because earthworms breathe through their skin.
Okay.
So they like to be nice and wet, and then you see all these lines, these segments along the body, and then there's one area that looks slightly different to the rest. Now, if I turn it upside down, you can see it. You can see it a little bit clearly there.
Okay.
So that's called the saddle, and that's how you tell the difference. If it's got a saddle, it's an adult.
Okay.
And if it doesn't, it's a juvenile. Because this is the area where that's how they lay their eggs, using that saddle bit. So what we do is we dig a soil pit. It's a certain size, 20 centimetres wide, 20 centimetres deep, and then we pick out all of the worms in our soil sample, and then we separate them into adults and juveniles, and then we're using the Opal identification guide. We try and identify which particular species it is, and it's just for people to understand how incredibly important soil is. And earthworms, Charles Darwin called them nature's plough. They're probably one of the most important organisms on the planet because they help to maintain healthy soil. And without healthy soil, we wouldn't have food, we wouldn't have trees, we wouldn't have oxygen. So it all comes down to worms at the end of the day, and the soil fauna. And we still understand very little about soil. We know more about space than we do about soil. So it's just people appreciating the soil beneath their feet and not thinking of it as mud, but it's a whole ecosystem in itself. And even in a teaspoon of soil, there's more living organisms than there are human beings on the whole planet. So it gives you some idea of how important it is.
Fantastic. Well, Iwan, that was very, very interesting. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
You want to come and see Iwan and his worms? Come to the North Wales Wildlife Trust tent.